This is Rob Tebbett for ID Boxing, and it is my privilege, my honor to be joined by the greatest living boxer on the planet today. It's Manos de Piedra, Roberto Duran, Hands of Stone. Roberto, a real pleasure. How are you?
Very good, thank you. Very happy estar aquí en.
He's very happy to be here in Saudi Arabia.
Well, we're happy to have you here. You are here for Alexander Usyk versus Anthony Joshua. Are you looking forward to the fight on Saturday?
Que si está esperando la pelea del sábado.
Sí, por eso estamos aquí. Vine con mis dos hijos a pasarla feliz de la vida y contento de estar por acá.
Yeah, that's the reason that we are here. I came with my two sons, and we are very happy to be here for the fight.
Did you watch the first fight between Anthony Joshua and Alexander Usyk?
Que si vio la primera pelea entre Alexander Usyk y Anthony Joshua.
Yo creo que sí, pero no me recuerdo ahora mismo.
I think I did see it, but I don't really remember it.
Okay, well, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about you. You are one of the greatest fighters of all time, so I would love to have some time to talk about you and your career. Your fighting style, you were a boxer, you were a fighter, you could fight on the inside and on the outside. What do you think your greatest strength was as a fighter?
Su estilo de pelea de usted era un boxeador, pero también se podía fajar por adentro, podía boxear de afuera.
Sí.
Pero ¿cuál cree que fue su mejor arma en su estilo de boxear?
Yo digo que mi estilo de boxear era boxear y fajarme a la vez.
He said that his best tool was to be able to box and to brawl or fight at the same time.
Porque tú tenías que confundir el boxeador, no que el boxeador te confunda a ti.
That you had to confuse your opponent and not the opponent confuse you.
El primer asalto yo le boxeaba.
The first round, I would box him.
Y cuando él pensaba que yo le iba a salir boxeando, entonces me le fajaba, entonces lo confundía.
So when he would think that in the second round I would come out boxing again, I would fight him, and that's when he would be confused.
Now, a lot of people, myself included, consider you to be the greatest lightweight of all time. If there was one lightweight who you didn't fight from any era who you would want to fight, who would it have been?
Todo el mundo lo considera usted el mejor ligero de todos los tiempos, pero hay un peso ligero en cualquier era del boxeo que a usted le hubiera gustado enfrentarse.
Digo, nunca lo he pensado y para mí es una sorpresa porque nunca lo he pensado.
He said it's a very tough question because he had never thought about that. He never thought of who he would have fought or he would have wanted to fight at that weight.
Porque el boxeador que a mí me gustaba en esa época era Sugar Ray,
Robinson.
Sugar Ray Robinson, that's right.
He said that during that time, the fighter that he liked during that time when he was a lightweight was Sugar Ray Robinson.
The fight that a lot of people nowadays talk about you fighting is Floyd Mayweather Jr. How would that fight have gone?
Dice que una pelea de fantasía que mucha gente habla es usted contra Floyd Mayweather Jr. ¿Cómo cree que hubiera?
Don't cry for me, Argentina. Me more experience, more intelligent the boxer. Yo soy demasiado inteligente y sé cuando un boxeador está mal y cuando un boxeador no está mal.
He says that he's very intelligent. He's too intelligent, and that he would know when Mayweather would be good or when he would be bad.
People talk about his defense. How would you have broken down his defense?
Habla de la defensa de Mayweather. ¿Cómo usted hubiera pasado por esa
No,
defensa?
no. La defensa que él tiene la aprendió de mí. ¿Oíste? Un hombre como él es fácil pegarle. Un hombre como yo, él no tiene nada que enseñarme a mí. Yo sé demasiado para él.
He says that the defense that Mayweather uses, he learned it from him, and that there's nothing he could learn from Mayweather that it's on the contrary, Mayweather would learn from him.
Mayweather tiene un problema.
Mayweather has a problem.
Que no le gusta que le peguen abajo. Y donde le pegan abajo sale a correr y después se queja que le pegaron el golpe bajo.
He says that Mayweather doesn't like to get hit to the body, and once you hit him to the body, he starts to run, he starts to complain that you hit him low.
A fight that we were talking about earlier was your fight with Ray Leonard, the first fight, the brawl in Montreal. A lot of people consider that the best win of any fighter ever. What are your memories of that fight?
Y una pelea que se habla
Sí.
mucho es de la de
Montreal,
Montreal, que es el triunfo, mucha gente considera el mejor triunfo de todos los tiempos. ¿Qué es lo que
Sí,
usted
sí.
recuerda de esa pelea?
Yo me acuerdo muy bien que una vez mi manager, Carlos Deleta, me dijo, Durante, conseguí una pelea por el campeonato mundial.
He says that he remembers very well when Carlos Zeleta, his manager at the time, told him that he had gotten him a fight for the world title.
Me dice, pero hay un problema.
That there's a problem. That's what he told them.
¿Cuál es el problema?
What is the problem?
Que el tipo es demasiado rápido y correlón. Dilo. Y le digo, eso a mí no me preocupa, yo me lo voy a ganar.
He said the problem is that the opponent is very fast and he moves very well. And he goes, that's not a problem. I'm going to beat him.
Y entonces comencé a practicar con gente mucho más rápido.
He started to practice spar with fighters that are much faster.
Y entonces, ¿qué hice yo? Cuando un boxeador que corre mucho y boxea, tiene que cortarle el ring por la mitad.
So what he did, he would have to cut off the ring by half. That's what he would practice.
Para que no pueda moverse mucho y tú lo correlas lo más rápido lo puedas correlar.
Yeah, the sooner that you cut off the ring and catch him, the better.
Ahora, Leona tenía una ventaja, que pegaba duro, y entonces yo tenía que hacer, no dejarme pegar de él. ¿Por qué? Porque como él me vio a mí, que era un hombre chiquito, yo parecía ser un hombre débil, y no era un hombre débil, era un hombre muy fuerte y muy inteligente arriba del ring.
He said that Leonard did have an advantage that he would hit very hard, so he had to work on not getting hit because Leonard thought that he was smaller and weaker, but he wasn't, and that was a downfall.
Out of the fighters of today, which fighters do you like to watch?
Los boxeadores de la actualidad, ¿cuáles son los que le gusta ver a usted?
Para mí todos son buenos hoy en día.
He says that all of them are very good.
Todos son buenos.
One other fighter who we spoke about is the late, great Esteban de Jesus, your great rival at lightweight. I want to know what you felt with the first time that you lost. When you lost the first fight to de Jesus, how did that make you feel?
Sí. Dile que cuando yo fui a pelear con él, yo tuve un accidente de carro en Panamá.
He said that when he went to fight De Jesus, he had an car accident in Panama.
Entonces yo me partí el codo en dos y la boca en dos.
He fractured his elbow and his mouth.
Y tenía una bola de, cuando se me cerró la boca, tenía una bola de carne aquí todavía de sangre en la boca.
So when his mouth closed, he had some kind of injury in his mouth still.
Bueno, me consiguieron la pelea. Peleamos en el Madison Square Garden, yo me acuerdo muy bien, que él nada más me tumbó a mí. Él solamente me tumbó a mí. Y yo me paré y le gané la pelea, pero se la dieron a él.
The fight was at Madison Square Garden. He was knocked down, but he says after a knockdown, he got up and he won the rest of the fight. He feels that he won the fight, but they gave it to De Jesus.
Cuando yo llego a Panamá, le digo a mi manager, el señor Carlos Zeleta, señor Caleta, consígueme la revancha que él no me va a ganar a mí.
When he got back to Panama, he talked to his manager, Carlos Zeleta, and he asked him for the rematch because he said, he's not going to beat me.
Y así fue, me consiguió la pelea y el hombre vuelve y me tumba en el primer asalto.
He says that he got the rematch, he goes in the fight, and he gets knocked down in the first round.
Yo miro a la esquina, todo mundo puertorriqueño contento y de alegría. Yo miro a mi esquina y le hago así a mi entrenador.
So he says that everybody's going crazy, Puerto Ricans were going crazy. He looked over to his corner, he said, don't worry.
Entonces él salió a noquearme.
He came out to knock him out. De Jesus came out to knock out Duran.
Entonces yo comencé a mover la cabeza porque la salvación de Roberto Durán, que sabe mover la cabeza muy bien, pasar los golpes, pues.
So he started moving his head because there's one thing that Roberto Duran knows how to do is to move his head.
Yo comencé a dibujarlo porque Esteban de Jesús parecía un luchador, tenía demasiado fuerte era.
De Jesus looked like a wrestler. He was very strong.
Y yo comencé a boxearle, a pegarle por abajo, por arriba, por todos lados, y cogiendo golpes y subiendo, en ese tiempo eran 15 asaltos, dile.
And that fight was 15 rounds, but he kept boxing him, hitting him down, hitting him on top, but he just kept fighting him.
Pegándole por todos lados hasta que lo cansé de tanto pegarse. Le cansé el cuerpo él de tanto recibir golpe él.
So he broke him down to the body because he hit him so many times that he was able to break him down.
Cuando lo crucé arriba, ya no aguantaba, porque ya estaba demasiado golpeado, porque eran 15 asaltos. Ya no aguantaba los golpes ya.
Yeah, so when he went to the top, couldn't take the punches. It was 15 rounds, he couldn't take it anymore.
Cuando yo lo tumbé a él, él no se pudo parar, porque primero que estaba muy golpeado y segundo que estaba muy cansado.
He said that once he knocked him down, he couldn't get up because not only was he hurt, but he was very tired.
Después vino la tercera pelea en Las Vegas.
Then came the third fight in Las Vegas.
Y él me dice que esta vez sí me iba a ganar. Y yo le dije a él, ya te tengo bien estudiado, no me vas a poder ganar.
He said that Jesus told him, now I'm going to beat you. He goes, you're not going to beat me. I studied you very well. You're not going to beat me.
Y él pensó que cuando sonaba la campana, yo le iba a caer a golpe, tranquilo, de salida, porque eso es lo que él esperaba.
He felt that Jesus thought that once the bell rang, that Duran was going to go after him because that's what he expected.
Comencé a boxearle, a pegarle por todos lados. Le eliminé porque su mano favorita era la mano izquierda de él. Comencé a boxearle para todos lados porque él esperaba que yo me fajara con él.
So he kept boxing because Jesus expected for him to brawl it out. He kept boxing him and he eliminated the left hand.
Y así fue que me lo gané. Cuando yo caía en el treceavo, yo digo, ahora es que le voy a poner presión porque está cansado.
So then, ¿usted cayó en el 13?
No, él.
Oh, when he knocked him down in the third ring, he goes, okay, I'm going to go after him because I think he's tired.
Sí. Y le puse presión y él ya no aguantaba los golpes y él solo ya se rindió.
So then he just applied the pressure. He couldn't take the punches, so he gave up.
Y sí, le gané por nocaut técnico.
And he knocked him out. He won by TKO.
Now, we spoke about this before. I'd like to speak to you again about that moving photograph of when Esteban de Jesus was very ill with AIDS and you embraced him. Just tell me about that story.
Dice que ya lo habíamos platicado, pero quiere preguntarle otra vez de esa emotiva foto donde estaba de Jesús con SIDA y la foto que le tomaron.
Bueno, yo estaba en Panamá y hay un señor que se llama Yamil Chávez, casualmente de aquí. Él me va a buscar a Panamá, me dice, Durán, porque Esteban de Jesús estaba preso.
So he said that he was in Panama and a friend of him, Jamil Chavez, went to look for him and told him, hey, Duran de Jesus is in prison in Puerto Rico.
Y vamos a verlo a un lugar que se llama acá Hogares Crea, porque está muy enfermo.
Because we have to go see him in Puerto Rico because he's very sick.
A verlo a un lugar que se llama Lugares Crea.
And to see him in a place called El Hogar de Crea.
La cárcel está aquí y lo sacan de ahí y lo meten en un sanatorio.
So he was in prison and they took him across the street, which was a hospice because he was very sick.
Sí. Y entonces cuando yo fui allá, lo vi, lo abracé, lo vi bien delgadito, lo abracé y como que le dolió.
He says that he saw him there. He was very thin, so he hugged him and he hugged him so tight that it looked like it hurt de Jesus.
Pregunto yo, me hago la pregunta. Dicen, a mí no me crean, dicen que comenzaron a coger cosas, inyectarse en la celda y parece que hay alguien que estaba enfermo y lo tocaba a él y entonces se puso la inyección esa y ahí fue donde le vino la enfermedad.
He says that he doesn't know for sure, but the way that de Jesus contacted HIV and then AIDS is because they were sharing syringes in prison.
Hasta ahí es lo que yo sé. Entonces, lastimosamente, bueno, cuando yo vi, dile que estoy tratando de recordarme lo más que pueda. Dile.
So he's trying to remember the best he can because, you know, it was a long time ago.
Bueno, me duele porque me acuerdo que una vez me dice un tipo a mí, señor Durán, si usted no hubiera nacido, Esteban de Jesús fuera el boxeador más grande que tuviera el Puerto Rico y el mundo entero.
He says he feels bad because one time a gentleman told him, if you would never have been born, Esteban de Jesus would have been the biggest fighter that Puerto Rico ever had.
Pero lastimosamente nació un hombre que se llama Roberto Durán.
But unfortunately, a man was born by the name of Roberto Duran.
Bueno, como digo, dentro de la enfermedad, eso fue lo que me dieron a mí, que se inyectaba con unos amigos, no sé qué. Hasta ahí yo no puedo decir, hasta ahí nada más sé yo.
Yeah, that's all he knows about how de Jesus contacted the disease. That's all he knows.
Y de ahí fue donde él cogió la enfermedad.
And that's where he got the
Hasta ahí yo no
disease.
sé.
That's all he knows.
People still now talk about your fights with Leonard, Hearns, the late great Marvin Hagler. What does that mean to you that all of these years later people still talk about you?
Que la gente todavía habla de sus grandes peleas contra Leonard, contra Hagler, contra que en paz descanse Hagler. ¿Qué significa para usted que la gente todavía habla de esas peleas?
Bueno, como dicen ellos, somos los cuatro reyes, dile.
It's like they say, we're the four kings.
Y peleábamos entre nosotros mismos, entre los buenos. Porque los cuatro éramos buenos, pero entre los otros cuatro peleábamos.
He says that we fought between us because we were good. We were that good that we would fight between us.
Y con todo eso, seguimos siendo amigos.
And despite of that, we kept being friends.
Y el que más amigo se hizo amigo mío fue Sugar Ray Leonard y Irán Barkley. No, el Coco, ¿cómo es? Marvin Hagler.
He says, but of all of them, the ones that were my best friends was Sugar Ray Leonard and Marvin Hagler.
Goodbye.
Sugar Ray Leonard and you, over the years, you were rivals. You hated each other at one point, but you're good friends.
Dice que en el tiempo con usted, con Sugar Ray Leonard, fueron contrincantes de que quizás en un momento se odiaban, pero ahora son buenos amigos.
Sí. A veces Leona, él tiene una fundación y a veces él me busca a mí para que yo vaya para allá para que recoger fondos para ayudar a la fundación.
Yeah, he says they're very good friends. That even now, Sugar Ray Leonard has a foundation, and he calls them to go help raise funds for his foundation.
Y para mí es un placer, yo voy allá y me trata como si yo fuera su hermano.
Because it's my pleasure to go help him. He treats me like if I was his brother.
Pero nice man, nice man.
What do you do now you're retired? You are a king, a god in Panama. What do you do now you are retired?
Y ahora que está retirado, usted es un dios en Panamá. ¿Qué hace en Panamá?
Yo no me considero un dios en Panamá.
He said he doesn't consider himself a god in Panama.
Yo me considero una persona que me he dado a querer en el pueblo panameño y en el mundo entero, pero no me considero ni un rey ni un dios.
He says that he considers himself a person that, has earned the love of the Panamanian people and the world, but he doesn't consider himself not a god or a king.
Le hablo al rico, le hablo al pobre y le hablo al que no es pobre también le hablo.
He says he talks to the rich, he talks to the poor, he talks to everybody.
Y sigo siendo la misma persona.
He goes, I am the same person.
No me considero ni rey, ni king, ni nada. Me considero amigo de todo mundo, que es lo más bonito para mí.
He goes, I don't consider myself a king. I consider myself a friend of everybody, that which is beautiful for me.
El que me quiera hablar, me habla. El que no me quiera hablar, bueno, no puedo hacer nada.
Whoever wants to speak to me, they can. If they don't, then it's okay.
Pero soy el mismo.
But I am the same.
No se me ha subido ni lo sumo, ni tampoco se me ha bajado. Sigo siendo igual.
He goes, I haven't gone up to the heights, and I don't feel low either. I'm the same.
El que me quiere, me quiere. El que no me quiere, bueno, no es mala suerte mía.
Yeah, he goes, whoever loves me, and if they don't, it's not bad luck for me.
After the second Ray Leonard fight, you beat Davey Moore years later. How big of a win was that for you to get your career back to the top?
Después de la derrota contra Sugar Ray Leonard y usted le ganó a Davey Moore, ¿qué significó ese triunfo para usted ya que llegó otra vez a la cima de su carrera?
Yo me acuerdo cuando estábamos en Nueva York,
I remember when we were in New York,
estaba Suleiman
it was José Suleiman was there
del Consejo Mundial de Boxeo.
of the WBC.
Y yo estaba con un señor que ya murió que se llama Víctor Café en Nueva York,
He was with a man named by Victor Café who passed away already.
en el restaurante en New York. Y entonces yo le digo a Víctor, háblese con el señor Suleiman para que me dé una oportunidad por el título mundial.
He says that he asked Victor, speak to Mr. Suleiman so that he gives you the opportunity for the world title.
Pero como el señor Suleiman quería mucho a Víctor del Corral,
So because Mr. Suleiman cared a lot for Victor ¿cómo se llamaba?
Víctor del Corral.
Victor del Corral.
En ese tiempo el campeón ahí era David Moore.
At that time, the champion was Davey Moore.
Y entonces nos sentamos, me acuerdo muy bien, y Víctor le pide el favor a Suleiman.
So we sat down. I remember very clearly that Victor asked Suleiman for that favor.
Sí. Suleiman Father.
José Suleiman.
Ok. Me acuerdo bien que me dice a mí, Durán, te voy a dar una oportunidad por el título mundial, pero sí, me tienes que prometer que cuando pierdas o pierdes, ducie por el micrófono que te va a retirar el boxeo.
He said that José Suleiman told him, I'm going to give you the opportunity, but if you lose, you announce your retirement.
Yo le dije, qué mala suerte va a tener porque yo no voy a perder.
He says, well, it's going to be a bad luck for you because I'm not going to lose.
Pero si pierde, lo va a decir y quiero que lo diga.
And Suleiman insisted, but if you lose, you're going to announce it. You're going to announce your retirement.
Y yo le repito, no voy a perder.
And he repeated, I'm not going to lose.
Y se hizo la pelea y gané.
And he made the fight and he won.
Tell me about the story of you knocking out a horse.
Que le cuenta la historia de que usted noqueó un caballo.
Sí, sí. Cuando yo tenía 14 años,
and I was 14 years old.
yo soy mi mamá es de un pueblo que se llama Guararé,
His mother's from a town called Waraye.
en el interior, afuera,
It's like in the outskirts of,
fuera de Panamá.
outside of Panama, the outskirts of Panama.
Ah. Y entonces, allá todos los años hacen una fiesta que se llama la Mejorana de Guararé.
And every year they do a big festival called la Mejorana de Waraye.
Y toda mi familia son de allá.
And his whole family is from that town.
Yo nací en Chorrillo, Casepiedra, en Panamá.
And he was born in a barrio named Chorrillo de Casa de Piedra in Panama.
Y me voy para allá, pues.
So he goes to that town.
Y me voy a vivir a la casa de mi familia.
So he goes and lives with his family in his family's home in that town.
Y fuimos a un baile,
He went to a dance.
y me siento en una mesa así, con toda mi familia,
He was sitting at a table with all his family.
y llegaron una muchacha, y dije, ay, qué lindo tú estás, Durán, una hembra.
So he was 14 and a young lady came in and goes, "Oh, you're very beautiful, Duran."
Entonces, allá en Panamá es una bebida que se llama seco herrerano,
There's a drink in Panama, it's called Seco
una
Renano.
bebida blanca,
It's a white drink like alcohol?
sí, alcohol,
Alcohol.
pero yo no tomaba,
But he didn't drink, he was 14.
sí. Entonces la pelada dije, ay, Durán, que no sé, comenzaron a acariciarme y cosas.
So the young ladies kept, caressing him and
De
everything.
repente viene un tipo y me dice, Durán, te apuesto $100 y una botella de whisky que tú no quedas ese caballo.
So then some guy came up, he goes, "Hey, Duran, I'll bet you $100 and a bottle of whiskey you can't knock out that horse."
Yo le digo, noquear un caballo, tú estás loco, ¿quién va a noquear un caballo?
He goes, "What are you, knock it out a horse? What are you, crazy? Who's going to knock out a horse?"
Dice mi tío, que para descanse,
And his uncle said, may he rest in peace,
apuesta que yo te voy a decir que tú le vas a dar para que lo tumbe.
so his uncle backed him. He said, "Go ahead and bet him because I'm going to back you up."
Entonces le digo al tipo, ¿te conformas con tumbarlo? Porque noquear un caballo, nadie puede noquear un caballo.
He says, "Would you be satisfied to just knock it down? Because I don't think anybody could knock out a horse."
Dice el tipo, va a la apuesta.
And he goes, "Okay, let's bet."
Ahora yo le digo a mi tío,
And he told his uncle,
tío, ¿y cómo yo voy a noquear ese caballo?
he goes, "How am I going to knock out that horse?"
Pero yo le miré la cara, estaba el caballo así.
When he said, I'm not going to make that face, but that's the face the horse made.
Digo yo así ya medio
And
tarquea.
he was already been drinking, so he was a little, buzz.
Le digo, tío, ¿cómo voy a noquear este caballo? ¿Cómo yo lo voy a tumbar?
He goes, "How am I going to knock it down or how am I going to knock it out?"
Y dice el tipo, dura, me conformo solamente con lo tumbe.
So the guy he bet, he says, "I'll be satisfied if you just knock him down."
Y me le quedo mirando el caballo así.
So he's just looking at the horse. He had that face.
Y yo digo,
He was drinking, so he had that face.
tío, ¿y a dónde le voy a pegar yo a este caballo?
And he asked his uncle, "Uncle, where am I going to hit the horse?"
Es fácil, dice,
And his uncle said, "It's easy.
pégale detrás del oído,
Just hit him behind his ear.
que esa es la debilidad
That's where the weakness is at."
de los animales y también la debilidad de los hombres.
He goes, "That's where the weakness is of not only the animals,
Que
but
le
of the
voy a
man. Of
enseñar
man."
una demostración con un dedito así nada más a él, dile.
He goes, "I'm going to show you just with the finger."
Give me this. Don't worry. You see? Aquí hay que quitar el hueso, dile.
He goes, "There's a bone there."
Y esto que pasé yo y le pego una trompa al caballo y el caballo se cae.
He hit the horse right there, and the horse went down.
Pero no lo noqueé.
But he didn't
Pero
knock
la
him out.
apuesta era que lo tumbara.
But the bet was only to knock it down.
Yo no quería hacer la apuesta, pero tú sabes cómo son las mujeres y caen, sí, dale, duro que tú. Y comenzaron a besarme.
Yeah, he didn't want to do the bet, but you know how women are. They started caressing him and telling him to
Yo
do the
tenía
bet.
como 15 años apenas.
He was like 14, 15 years old.
Y sabes, un peladito así que lo besa y le abraza a la mujer y yo no va.
So he said, I couldn't resist because once the women start kissing you and
Cuando yo
everything,
tumbé el caballo,
when he knocked the horse down,
me gané la apuesta,
he won the bet.
pero comencé a sudar.
But he started to sweat.
Entonces yo hago así, me paso la mano por la cara,
He went like that. He passed his hand through
yo
his
me siento
face,
como que me falta un dedo.
and he said he felt like he had a finger missing.
Este dedo que está aquí se me había salido por acá.
Wow, he said he fractured his finger with the punch.
El dedo quedó así.
It was like all bent out of shape.
Y yo agarré el dedo y lo eché para atrás.
And he pulled it himself.
Lo jalé y plan me lo metí para adentro y me quedó. Ya de ahí el dedo se cerró y al día siguiente fui y me cosieron la mano.
So he said that his bone popped out of his finger and he popped it back in, and then the next day he went and they sutured it.
Y ahí, bueno, me gané la apuesta.
So he won the bet.
Me gané la apuesta.
So it did happen.
Back to you. I want to talk about your trainer, Ray Arcel. The great Ray Arcel had many, many champions. What did he mean to you?
Que le pregunta el entrenador Ray Arcel que tuvo muchos campeones, ¿qué significa para usted?
Yo respeto al señor Ray Arcel,
I respect Ray Arcel,
pero el verdadero entrenador se llama el otro viejito, Freddie Brown.
yeah, he respects Ray Arcel, but his real trainer was Freddie Brown.
Sí. Porque Freddie Brown se metía 1 mes y 2 meses conmigo en Panamá.
Because Freddie Brown would go to Panama and he would stay with him for a month or 2 months.
Y Ray Arcel llegaba 3, 4 días a la mala pelea y decía Gucci, y esto es lo que decía.
And Ray Arcel would get there 3 days, 4 days before the fight. He would just say good shit, and that's all he would say.
Pero Ray Arcel le dijo una cosa a mi manager.
Ray Arcel, ¿qué le dijo?
Ahora te voy a decir, dile que Ray Arcel,
Le dijo algo a
Carlos Eleta le dijo a Ray Arcel,
Carlos Eleta, who was his manager, gave Ray Arcel.
a Durán no hay que enseñarle nada porque él lo sabe todo.
So Carlos Eleta, who was his manager, told Ray Arcel, you don't need to teach Duran anything because he knows everything.
Ray Arcel le dice a Carlos Eleta,
Ray Arcel told that to Carlos Eleta, that you don't
Okay.
need to teach anything to Duran, he knows everything.
porque ya yo lo estudié y sabe demasiado.
And he goes, because I have been watching him and he knows a lot.
Ni yo ni Freddy Don tenemos nada que enseñar a Durán porque él lo sabe todo.
And Ray Arcel said, neither do I or Freddie Brown teach Duran anything because he knows it all.
We've spoken about Ray Leonard. I don't want to ask you about it, but I'm going to ask you about the second fight. What is your recollection of the second fight?
¿Qué es lo que usted recuerda de la segunda pelea contra Sugar Ray Leonard?
Ok, es fácil.
Very easy.
Leona estaba de vacaciones con su esposa Juanita.
He said that Leonard was on vacation with his wife Juanita.
Él no estaba entrenando ni nada, dile que digo yo.
Ray Leonard wasn't training or anything.
Pero entonces yo, cuando me gané a Ken Buchanan, no, la primera me gané a Leona.
So after I beat Ray Leonard,
Sí, yo me quedé en Nueva York con los latinos divirtiendo.
after he beat Ray Leonard, he stayed in New York with the Latino people, having fun.
Y me engordé, me puse bien gordo.
And he got very fat.
Pasó el tiempo, pasó el tiempo, pasó el tiempo, pasó el tiempo.
Time went by and the time went by,
Yo no iba a los gimnasios.
and he wasn't training.
Porque Leona era el rey de Nueva York, era Leona. Y cuando yo me lo gané, el rey era yo.
Because at the time Ray Leonard was the king of New York, and when he beat him, he was the king of New York.
Y me dice Carlos Eleta, Durán, vete para Panamá, que ya firmé la pelea de Leona, la revancha contigo.
So then Carlos Eleta, his manager, told him, Duran, you need to come back to Panama because I signed the fight against Ray Leonard, the rematch.
Y le dije, no hay problema, yo me lo voy a volver a ganar. ¿Para cuándo es la pelea?
And he said, don't worry about it. I'm gonna beat him again. When's the fight?
Dentro de un mes. Y yo, ¿qué? ¿Tú estás loco?
And he said, when? 1 month? You're crazy.
Yo estaba pensando 190 libras
He was weighing 190 pounds
para pelear 147 libras.
to fight at 147.
Comencé a rebajar. Yo me desmayaba. En el hotel me desmayaba. Yo tenía que dormir en una tina dentro con hielo, porque cuando ya uno bota la grasa, la calor era demasiado y me estaba ahogando.
He said that he has to start dropping weight, and he would sometimes pass out because he was so hot, and he would have to sleep in a tub with ice because it was so hot.
Y pusieron el pesaje el mismo día de la pelea,
And the weighing was the same day as the fight,
para que yo no me recuperara y cogiera fuerza,
so he wouldn't be able to recoup himself and get strong
porque Leona me tenía miedo.
because Leonard was afraid of him.
Bien. ¿Qué pasa? Que cuando subimos arriba del ring, Leona hasta que temblaba porque yo lo vi y yo me eché a reír.
He says that when they went into the ring, he saw Leonard shaking, he started laughing.
Pero cuando él vio que el primer asalto y dos asaltos yo no le puedo hacer nada porque no podía hacer nada, porque había rebajado demasiado,
But when he saw that I wasn't able to do anything because I had dropped weight so much,
él se creció.
that he got
Pero
confident.
yo sabía que él iba a boxear, que iba a hacer todo lo que él iba a hacer.
¿Quién sabía?
Leona.
Leonard knew that he was going to be able to box.
Sí. Él ver a ver que yo no pude hacer nada y él vio que no tenía fuerza y traté de hacer una fuerza y me pegó un calambre que le tomaba y el hombre, no voy a pelear más, viene la revancha, me preparo mejor y me lo voy a ganar.
So he said that, he tried to fight him, but he got a cramp in his stomach and he wasn't able to continue because he felt that he was going to be able to get the rematch and beat him again.
Fuimos a la conferencia de prensa.
Después,
Sí.
he went to the post-fight press conference.
Y él dice, no voy a pelear con Roberto Durán por ahora.
He goes, and that Leonard announced that he wasn't going to fight Roberto Duran for the time
Bueno,
being.
yo no dije nada, yo me fui para mi casa tranquilo, para Panamá, no salía a ningún lado.
He said he didn't say anything. He went back to Panama. He was calm and he wouldn't go out anywhere.
Yo no iba ni a los gimnasios, no iba a ningún lado, no salía de mi casa.
He wasn't going anywhere, not to the gyms, anywhere. He wasn't going anywhere.
De repente Leona estaba entrenando todos los días, entrenaba todos los días.
And Leonard was training all the time.
Y yo no, yo en mi casa tomando trago con mis amigos y jugando billar.
He said he wasn't go out. He would just have friends over. They would drink a little bit and play,
Billar, pool.
pool.
¿Qué pasa? Me ofrecen un buen dinero y gusta un buen dinero. Fui por el dinero, no por ganarme a Leona.
So he said then they offered him good money. He said he went to get the money, not to beat Leonard.
Leona hizo el primer intento, casi lo noqueo.
He says, ¿cómo?
Él hizo el primer intento de atacarme y casi lo
¿La
noqueo.
segunda pelea?
Sí, la segunda pelea.
He says that when Leonard came in to try to... La
Tercera pelea.
In the third fight, when Leonard tried to come at him, he almost knocked him out.
Ya. Él salió a correr, a correr, a correr. Hizo otro intento de nuevo
He said he kept boxing, and then he tried to come at him again,
y le partí la ceja.
and he opened up a cut over his brow.
Él comenzó a correr, a hacer payasá. Yo digo que no me ganó, digo yo.
He says that he started boxing and everything. He doesn't think that Leonard beat him.
Y hacía un frío ese día que él se arropaba con una sábana y yo no me arropaba con nada.
He says that it was very cold. That
Ya
Leonard
que
was wearing like a he would, in el ring in el round, ¿verdad? He would wear like a
Había
blanket.
frío todo
It was all cold
en La Vega, había un frío
in Las
extraordinario.
Vegas,
Bueno, y me ganó, mala suerte la mía.
and he beat
Pero
him
yo
in the
más
third.
fui fue por el dinero.
But he just went for the money. The third fight, la tercera.
Sí.
Yeah, in the third fight, it was just about the money.
This fight this Saturday. This fight this Saturday, Anthony Joshua and Alexander Usyk. People say Anthony Joshua needs to be more aggressive. You were an aggressive fighter. What advice would you give to Anthony Joshua to beat Usyk?
Ya por último, en esta pelea dicen que Anthony Joshua tiene que ser más agresivo. Usted era un peleador muy agresivo. ¿Qué es el consejo que usted le daría a Anthony Joshua para ser más agresivo?
Primero tiene que poner su respeto sobre el ring.
He said first he has to get the respect inside the ring.
Y cuando él se trepa arriba del ring, arriba del ring mando yo.
He says that when he goes in there, he has to go in there and show that he's the boss in that ring.
Dentro del boxeo, a mí nadie me puede ganar.
And that in this ring, nobody can beat me.
Te voy a dar una lección de boxeo
That I'm going to give you a boxing lesson.
y después te voy a noquear.
And then I'm going to knock you out.
Para que me respete. Ese es el consejo que yo le doy.
So that so you can respect me. That is the advice that he gives, and he has to demonstrate that inside the ring.
Él tiene que poner su voluntad, él, el que manda es él. Más nadie puede mandar.
That he has to show his will, that he's the boss.
A mí nadie me puede ganar más, nada más que Dios.
The only one that could beat me is God. That's what he has to show.
Roberto, this has been such a pleasure for me to sit down and speak to you. What message have you got for fans? I want you to look at this camera and tell people about Duran and what the fans mean to you.
Londo? Londo, I love you. I love you, Londo. Londo, I want to try for my English. My English is regular. Only money, only woman. This is good for me. Londo, thank you for support for me for a lot of time. Thank you for my two kids when I go to London. I go to London. I want to tour. I'm very happy. I respect to London. Good for good. Thank you for love me. Love you. Love you. Buchanan, I love you. Respect with you. Every very people I respect. The London. Thank you, London. Thank you for love to me. Amor está bien, ¿no?
Sí.
That's why.
This has been one of the greatest nights of my life.
Que ha sido una de las mejores noches de su vida.
Gracias, thank you.